Hi friends, thanks for joining me today. So a little while ago I got a spin bike. I wanted to start incorporating a little more cardio into my life. Love my spin bike, using it all the time. It's great because I am not always able to get outside on my regular bike and cycle during daylight hours. So really nice way to get moving on my own schedule. My hip flexors, on the other hand, with all this cycling, kind of went, excuse me, what are you doing to me? So whether you cycle or not, whether you maybe sit a little bit more than your body loves, anything that involves hip flexion, this is a great little movement snack for you. So what we're gonna do today is just work to release out the front of the hips a little bit, release out the quadriceps, and give them a few options for a yummy stretch. So you're gonna need a foam roller, okay? So the first thing we're gonna do is just give the quads a little mash. So I have a medium density foam roller. You could definitely do a soft roller. I love the soft roller. So you're just gonna come on down, and you're just going to start to go up and down the thighs. Now, this shouldn't feel like excruciating pain. If it does, maybe you need to switch to a softer roller. And the reason for that is if your body is sensing like a ton of discomfort and pain when you're doing foam rolling or any sort of like kind of dabbling in that myofascial release world, if your body is getting the signal that, oh my gosh, this is super painful and I'm sweating and I'm tensing up, then it's a little bit counterproductive. So you want to feel that you're getting a little bit of change affected into the tissue. You can see I'm going super slow, but that it's not so uncomfortable that you feel like you're like, I can't even begin to think about relaxing. Okay, and then I'm gonna kind of roll all the way right to where my hip creases are. All right, so I'm right in that little divot where my thigh bone meets my pelvis, and then I'm just gonna kind of roll over to one side just a little bit. And then I'm just gonna start to very gently mash around into the kind of the front side of the hip flexor. So this is this groovy little muscle, or in the general vicinity of this groovy little muscle called your TFL, your tensor fascia lata, the latte muscle. And it's one of the attachment points to your iliotibial band. Now the IT band doesn't really have a lot of ability to expand nor contract. It's like a rigid band of connective tissue that's there to support your knee. We want it to be a little bit rigid. But if the muscles that surround and kind of attach the IT band to other areas get a little bit too tight, it kind of pull, and it makes the knee and the hip a little uncomfortable. So we're just kind of getting into those areas. All right, let's go to the other side. I'm just gonna roll away from you. Sorry, I'll be right back. But you might get a different view of kind of where the foam roller is. And really anything in this area is kind of fair game. The nice thing about doing this on the foam roller, if it's a more generalized surface area, so you're not really getting that kind of like triggery point therapy stuff with like a ball sticking in to your hip in various places. This is kind of just like a nice little rinse. I'm just mooshing around a bit. Rolling. Okay, great. All right, from there I'm gonna go ahead and switch it up. So I'm gonna take my foam roller a little bit forward, try to be graceful in my transitions. And then I'm next to a wall just for what we're gonna do in a little bit, but you wanna make sure you have enough space to at least stretch your legs out long. I'm gonna go ahead and come on down. I'm gonna bring the foam roller underneath my pelvis. And then I'm just gonna stay here for a moment. This could even here in this supported bridge position be quite an intense stretch for the front of the hips, especially with the knees bent. So if this feels like, I'm getting just a nice little light opening through here, letting the ribs melt down, this is great. If you wanna take it a little bit more, you can start to hug one knee in and then let the pelvis kind of posteriorly tilt a little bit just till you feel a little bit of pull on the front of that thigh. If you need a little bit of directional cueing here, what you're thinking about is the knee reaching just gently forward as this hip point kind of pulls away. So we're trying to open up this area. And with the knee bent, it's gonna get a little bit more into the actual quadricep muscles. kind of get into the psoas, higher up into the hip flexors in a moment, but we're just gonna stay here, letting your low back just melt like some fondue chocolate or butter, whatever tickles your fancy, and just breathe. Wiggle around a little bit, and then you're gonna start to send that bent knee long, and you'll feel that the sensation of stretch kind of moves up a little bit higher. Notice if your ribs really wanted to go along for the ride. You don't have to crunch them down, just allow gravity to do its job here. Kind of open up a little bit more into the front of the hip. And again, just breathe. So for the sake of these little mini workouts, little videos, you know, I kind of run through these stretches or these releases a little bit faster than I normally would in a class setting or in a private session. So again, this is just like a little taste, some ideas to plant. If you find something that feels really yummy or that you're like, my body just loves that and I need more of it, take it. My gift to you. Take it, run with it, change it, stay there longer. You know, make these movement suggestions your own. Let's go ahead and go to the other side. Let's bring the foot down. And then again, you're just gonna feel, oof, hello, this leg. Okay, I'm gonna draw the other knee up. And then I'm using this as a bit of a lever to kind of posteriorly or tip my pelvis towards my face, pubic bone goes skyward. And I'm thinking about my right knee now reaching forward, my right hip point lifting away from my knee off that thigh bone and just getting a little stretch. So this has always been my problem, knee and hip flexor side. So I feel a little more pulling kind of closer to my knee. So what I'm gonna do is just back off a little bit, kind of play with where, there you go, play with my foot position so that I get the right architecture to where my nervous system can calm down and my body goes, okay, that feels safe, that feels good, and I can relax here. I'm just gonna breathe for a moment. And as I'm ready, I'm gonna take that leg long. Ooh, hello. Let me see if I can keep my ribs down. I'm just gonna let the front of the leg open. Breathe here. Foot can do whatever it needs to do. Notice if your leg really wants to flop out to the side. So that's kind of a sign of a little bit of, you know, excess tension, structure. We'll use that structure in the front of the hip. So see if you can roll the inner thigh down to the ground a little bit. You might feel a little different sensation. Okay, and we're gonna take the feet down. You're gonna lift the hips up and just move the foam roller out and roll to one side. Okay, so this next thing we're gonna do, it may be the perfect stretch for you. It may also be like, absolutely not, this is never happening. Give it a try, see how it goes. So I'm gonna double up my mat, possibly even quad up my mat, if that's a word. Hey, you foam roller, you don't get to go away. All right, so this is called a couple things, and I've heard it called in yoga King Arthur's stretch. I've also heard it called Ninja Death Stretch, which doesn't sound very inviting, so maybe we'll just stick with King Arthur. Or we can do quad wall stretch, which maybe sounds a little bit more inviting. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna slide my knee really close to the wall. So where I'm resting is not directly on my kneecap or patella, kind of on the front of my femur bone. So there's actually not a lot of pressure directly on the knee. I'm gonna use my foam roller to bring the floor up to me a little bit, and then I'm gonna alley-oop my front leg forward. Okay, so the foam roller can either be here. Another interesting place is you can slide it behind. Okay, and this is one of those where like your journey could look very different from mine. And that also means that you might be able to go much further into this shape than I can. I have very tight quads, okay? So what I'm gonna focus on is feeling some sensation of stretch through here and not getting so excited where I'm like, I must be upright, because now what's happening is it's my tummy that's getting a nice stretch, which is great, but that's not what we're working on right now. So what I'm gonna do is focus on staying very connected through my center And then instead of lifting up from my rib cage, I'm gonna think about, that's as far as I can go, is drop my pelvis down. And then if you wanna come up higher, you're gonna come up higher by swinging your pelvis upright. I am not going to do that. I'm gonna stay right here. And breathe. Okay, now I know my form may get a little wonky, but I just want to give you one other option, which is if you're going to come more upright, you can take the same leg that's back, that arm up, and do a little side stretch. And that just kind of opens up all that fascial connection, connective tissue on this side. Okay, quite enough of that. So I'm going to spin my foot down to get out of there. I'm going to move slowly. Okay, I'm going to go over to the other side. So again, you know, if this is not, if you're like, no, this is just, what you can do instead of this kind of more, I'm not gonna, like extreme shape, is just a nice little runner's lunge. Yeah. So keeping this knee down, not taking the foot up onto the wall, and just simply lunging those hips forward, applying those same principles of staying really connected through the front of the body. So noticing if your quad stretch is kind of sneakily turning into a back bend, which is still going to stretch your quadricep, but it's going to be more an exploration of back extension. Or can you stay nice and connected in the front and think about working the pelvis down, which is going to give you just a little bit more length in the front of the thigh. So let's stay here, kind of working to square-ish my hips. They will never be perfectly square because humans aren't perfectly square. We are spiralic in nature. We're not blocks, we're spirals. All right, and I'm going to come up, and if you choose, you can take this into a little side bend. And breathe. And coming down. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of set the length of the quadriceps by engaging the opposite side of the body. So I'm going to re-roll out my mat. Okay. And I'm going to use the wall for this. So I'm going to come on down. If you don't have a wall, regular old bridging will do the trick. The wall is kind of nice because you can go up a little bit higher. So I'm going to bring my feet to the wall. I might have to do a couple repetitions to get the correct distance. Arms are relaxed. I'm going to think about a slight tuck of the pelvis under, just a little bit. I'm going to start to peel up. I'm going to engage the back of the hip. I'm going to fix my leggings. And I'm going to think about lifting the hip points away from the knees, really stretching the knees forward, engaging through the back of the body. So I'm kind of setting the length in those quadriceps, and then just let the spine come down. Let's do that 4 more times. Coming up, tracking the knees, reaching them forward, lifting, and lowering down. It's a really nice way to work on your bridging mechanics because it's a slightly different lever position. So if you're somebody like me who really has a very excitable rib cage in bridging, this is a nice position because you have gravity kind of helping you a little bit to soften the ribs down and to really get that connection going through the back of the hip. Let's do 2 more. And up. And down. And 1 more. And lower down. And then take your feet down and come on up. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that gave you some nice, good food for thought and some ideas to open up those quadriceps and hip flexors if you've been doing quadricep and hip flexor intensive activity. I'll see you next time. Take good care. Bye.